What do you do when the person you die for walks away when you're dying? That question haunted Emma Hayes, because the man she trusted, her husband, her business partner, looked at her the moment she needed him most and saw nothing worth saving. For 20 years, Emma and Daniel Hayes were the couple everyone admired. He was the visionary CEO. She was the quiet strength behind him. Together, they built an empire. Boardrooms, parties, magazine covers, all showing a perfect marriage. But behind those smiles was a man who loved control more than love itself. When Emma was diagnosed with cancer, Daniel pretended to be supportive. He said all the right things. "We'll get through this. You'll be fine." But his eyes told another story. He wasn't staying to fight with her. He was waiting for a reason to leave. While she battled for her life, he was selling their shares, moving money, and whispering to his secretary about their future. Emma believed he was protecting her, until one night, lying weak in her hospital bed, she overheard his voice through the door. He said coldly, "No, she won't make it long. Once it's over, we'll move everything to the new branch. Just make sure my name's clean." That was the moment her heart stopped breaking. It hardened instead. She realized she hadn't married a partner. She had married a man who only loved power, not people. A few weeks later, Daniel came to visit. He didn't bring flowers or even a kind word, just a file folder. His voice was cold and businesslike. "I can't do this anymore, Emma. You're already gone. I have to move on." He left without looking back. No guilt, no hesitation, just freedom. Emma stared at the door he walked through, her body frail but her spirit still burning. A small, bitter smile crossed her face as she whispered to herself, "You'll come back, and when you do, I'll be ready." For 2 years, silence became Emma's only companion. No visitors, no calls, no husband. Even the people who once said, "We're like family," disappeared the moment she got sick. At first, the loneliness felt like death itself, a slow, quiet decay. The house that once echoed with laughter now only answered her footsteps. Every photo on the wall was a ghost of the life she lost. But somewhere between the pain and the pills, something inside her shifted. If everyone could leave her to die, she thought, then she would learn to live for herself. Every day became a ritual of survival. She read about nutrition and cellular healing. She watched documentaries on psychology, on rebuilding from trauma. She started writing notes about what pain does to people and how the body mirrors the soul. Her weakness began turning into data, her heartbreak into discipline. She stopped counting the days since Daniel left and started counting the steps she took toward recovery. Months passed, then a year, and one morning, sitting across from her doctor, she heard the words that once felt impossible. "Emma, you're cancer-free." There was no dramatic music, no tears, just a calm, quiet smile. She looked out the window, sunlight touching her face for the first time in months, and said softly, almost to herself, "Now the healing begins, but not mine." 5 years later, the woman everyone forgot became impossible to ignore. Eterna Life, a brand born from pain, Emma's pain. What started as a blog about recovery turned into a global wellness empire. Supplements, retreats, therapy centers, and books that sold faster than they could be printed. She didn't just heal herself, she gave millions of people permission to do the same. Every ad carried her face. Every headline called her the woman who beat death. But what they didn't know was that her empire was built on more than health. It was built on revenge disguised as light. While Emma's world soared, Daniel's crumbled. His company bled money. His mistress, the one he left everything for, drained his accounts, sold his assets, and vanished. The board turned on him. His friends disappeared. In the same city where Emma's billboards glowed across skyscrapers, he was reduced to nothing. One evening, in a desperate search for a lifeline, Daniel scrolled through job openings. A new position caught his eye. Executive consultant at Eterna Life. The salary was good. The company thriving. The CEO unknown. He sent his resume, never imagining whose desk it would land on. Days later, in her glass office overlooking the skyline, Emma sat across from her assistant. He handed her a folder. "Another application," he said. She opened it and froze. There it was, Daniel Hayes, her ex-husband. The silence that followed felt like a storm waiting to break. Her assistant asked carefully, "Should we reject him?" Emma leaned back, eyes cold but calm. Then, with a faint smile, she whispered, "No, let's give him a second chance. I believe in healing." Daniel Hayes walked into Eterna Life like a beggar stepping into a palace. He didn't recognize the empire around him. Clean, bright, serene, everything his world wasn't. And when he first saw her, he didn't recognize her either. Gone was the fragile woman in hospital gowns. Now stood Emma Rivers, the CEO, elegant, confident, untouchable. Her voice was calm, her smile disarming, her power terrifying. "Welcome to Eterna Life, Mr. Hayes," she said softly, extending her hand. For a second, his hand trembled. Something about her eyes, familiar, cold, haunting. But he dismissed the thought. He was desperate, and she was his only chance. At first, she treated him well. Polite emails, respectful tone. She assigned him special projects, but somehow, none of them mattered. Reports that went nowhere. Meetings that were canceled. Every idea he gave was under review. Weeks passed. He began to notice whispers. Colleagues avoided him. The team he led was reassigned without warning. His login access revoked for technical issues. Bit by bit, he was fading again. He stayed late every night, staring at screens that wouldn't open, plans that wouldn't move. And yet every morning, she greeted him with the same calm smile. "Good morning, Daniel. How's the progress?" That smile, it killed him more than anger ever could. One afternoon, she invited him to speak at a board meeting, his first in months. He arrived, hopeful, papers in hand. But when he entered the room, every chair was empty, only her, sitting at the head of the table. "Meeting's over?" he asked, confused. She looked up from her laptop, pretending to be surprised. "Oh, didn't anyone tell you? It was canceled." Then, a faint smile. "Don't worry, Daniel. Things take time to heal." He left that room shaking. Something inside him began to crack. Night after night, he stayed longer, trying to prove himself, to understand. And every night, he saw her light on, glowing through the frosted glass. She never seemed to leave. One night, he couldn't take it anymore. He walked into her office, tired, angry, broken. She didn't even look up. "Why are you doing this?" he whispered. Her pen stopped. Silence filled the air. Then she looked up, calm, eyes sharp, voice steady. "Because," she said, "you taught me how." The lights flickered. The ghost of his past finally spoke back. Morning light spilled across the Eterna Life headquarters. But for Daniel, that light felt like judgment. He had spent nights chasing sleep that never came, haunted by a voice he couldn't place. Until now. He walked into the boardroom, documents shaking in his hands. And there, across the long glass table, she waited. Emma. Not the weak, trembling wife he abandoned. Not the woman dying in a hospital bed. But the woman who built an empire from ashes. His ashes. For a moment, the world went silent. The hum of the air conditioner. The faint tick of the clock. And his voice, breaking like glass. Emma? She looked up, calm, composed, eyes steady as a storm about to strike. Mr. Hayes, she said softly, please, sit. He didn't. He couldn't. His knees gave way and he dropped the file. I thought you were gone? She interrupted, her tone calm but cutting. I was. You buried me when you left. But I guess I healed faster than you expected. He stammered, searching for words, excuses, redemption, anything. Emma, I was scared. I made mistakes. Please, just... She raised her hand. Silence. Daniel, she said, standing, walking slowly toward him. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. She circled him like a quiet storm. When you left, I had nothing, not even hope, but pain became my teacher, and healing, she smiled faintly, became my weapon. He fell to his knees, tears burning his eyes. Please forgive me. She leaned closer, voice barely a whisper. Forgiveness isn't free. It's earned through suffering. And you finally started yours. She turned back to her desk, picked up the termination letter, and placed it gently before him. Effective immediately, she said. Your services are no longer required at Eterna Life. No shouting, no scene, just silence, the kind that cuts deeper than rage ever could. He stood, trembling, looking at her one last time. I loved you, he muttered weakly. She didn't turn around. No, she said quietly. You loved control. He walked out of the building, the same way he'd once walked out of her life, empty, alone. As the elevator doors closed, Emma stepped to the window, looking out at the city. The golden letters, Eternal Life, founded by Emma Hayes, glowed against the skyline. She smiled, not with triumph, but with peace. He left me when I was dying, but the woman who rose from that pain made sure he lived with it.